I've been called many things in my time here on YouTube, some of them true, most of them not. But today, I want to talk about what I think is the real problem with the United Kingdom. I don't think it's Brexit, although I have serious concerns about that. I don't think it's Scotland going, although I will miss them very much. And I don't think it's even the monarchy, although we do waste an awful lot of money on keeping the royals in fine clothes. So what is the problem? Well, I'll tell you. It's this. When you look at a map of the United Kingdom, you see this smattering of islands off the north coast of Europe. And then when you look at another map, you see the climate zones of the world. And you notice that the United Kingdom sits in the one that says temperate maritime. And you think, yes, that makes sense. The British Isles are surrounded by the sea, and they get their weather from the North Atlantic. And then you think, well, why aren't the weather in the British Isles then a bit better? Because it's not. We have this idea of Britain as being this glorious island story with rolling hills and quaint villages and red telephone boxers and warm beer and pies in the sky. And yes, all of those things exist in the United Kingdom, but they exist in quite small pockets. Much of the United Kingdom looks like this, or this, or this, or this. Much of the United Kingdom isn't even this green. It's actually this gray. Yes, we have this image of lush, rolling countryside. But really, there are only two types of landscape in the British Isles. There's either mountains or it's flat, and it rains. And while our landscapes might be dramatic, our weather rarely matches up to them. In the past few weeks, we've had storms which have literally ripped roofs off houses. Flooding is a regular occurrence in many parts of the country. Summers can be gloriously hot and sunny, but equally they can be cold and wet and miserable. Our climate has become unstable, erratic, extreme. We now regularly experience what used to be called once-in-a-lifetime floods, once-in-a-century heat waves, all within the space of a few years. But why? Why is the climate so bad in the country that invented the Industrial Revolution? The country that gave the world the steam engine, and the computer and Concorde and James Watt and Isambard Kingdom Brunel and Dyson and Margaret Thatcher and me? Surely we ought to be able to sort out our weather if we try hard enough. You know, we could always rely on good old British stiff upper lip and cup of tea to see us through the bad times. Except this time it's not just the rain and the wind that we have to deal with. This time, the British way of life itself is under threat. The truth is that the climate crisis is now a very real and present danger here in the United Kingdom. A report published last year by the Committee on Climate Change warned that climate change was already having a profound impact on the country. They said that flooding and other extreme weather events were costing the UK economy over £1 billion a year. If current trends continue, they said, the cost will rise to more than £60 billion by 2100. The report also said that rising temperatures would lead to water shortages, food shortages, energy shortages, the loss of wildlife and mass extinctions. And of course, these problems won't just affect the United Kingdom. What happens in the UK is increasingly what happens in England. Wales and Scotland are very different countries with their own distinct cultures and histories and identities. But they share one thing in common with England: a long coastline and a proud maritime history. The people of Wales and Scotland rely on the sea for their livelihoods, whether they're fishermen or farmers or hoteliers or anyone else who relies on tourism. Rising sea levels and more extreme weather mean that all of those jobs are under threat. As for Northern Ireland, well, I'm afraid it's pretty much a lost cause. Climate scientists say that rising sea levels alone could submerge large parts of the north coast by the end of the century, and that's if we're lucky. If global temperatures rise by as much as 4 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, which is what is likely to happen if emissions continue unabated, then the whole of Northern Ireland could be underwater within a few decades. So what are we doing about it? Well, one answer is nothing. We're doing nothing. Sure, we talk about cutting carbon emissions and net zero and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to taking real action, we're about as likely to take action on climate change as we are to take action on the national debt, which is to say never. I mean, think about it. This country runs a budget deficit every single year. We borrow more money than we make. Even during COVID, when most countries around the world were running a surplus, we were borrowing more money. And where does all that money go? Well, mostly it goes on foreign wars, and weapons, and tanks, and fighter jets, and carriers, and aircraft carriers, and all the trappings of a global superpower that we pretend we still are. Last year, the UK spent £58.5 billion on defense. According to figures from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, that's the fourth highest amount in the world behind China, the United States, and India. And it's more than double what the next highest European country spends on defense, which is France. But it's not just about money. It's also about political will. The UK government has made some noises about becoming carbon neutral by 2050, but they've done little to back it up. In fact, Boris Johnson has been accused of presiding over a massive expansion in the UK's carbon footprint. According to the Carbon Brief, the UK's greenhouse gas emissions rose by 3% in 2019, largely due to an increase in emissions from road vehicles. And don't forget, we have even started counting the carbon emissions from all those new homes and infrastructure projects in the north. See that are needed to support the oil and gas industries? This is, after all, the same government that announced a major shift in energy policy just months ago, when they decided to go all in on fracking, even though there's no evidence that fracking for shale gas is ever financially viable, environmentally sustainable, or indeed safe. While on the other hand, the UK has some of the best wind and tidal resources in the world, yet the government refuses to invest in them. In fact, I'd argue that the fundamental problem with the United Kingdom is that it doesn't understand the difference between its history and its geography. We live in an age of disruption. The world is changing faster than it ever has before, and yet we cling to the past, not just because we're a conservative country, but because we think the past is somehow an asset. We imagine that our history as a global superpower gives us some kind of divine right to keep on burning fossil fuels and polluting the planet. We imagine that the North Sea is still full of oil and gas, and that there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The reality is that the United Kingdom needs to face up to the future and stop living in the past. We need to accept that we're no longer the masters of the universe, and that we need to work with other countries to solve global problems. We need to realize that the only way we're going to survive is by working together. But maybe I'm being too optimistic. Maybe the United Kingdom really is doomed. If you want to hear more pessimistic theories about the demise of the United Kingdom, then check out this video. If you want to hear something a bit more positive, then check out this video. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.